I'd like to introduce our next session, and we're having a panel discussion this time. Display advertising, what's now, what's next, and does it still work? Well, of course it does. Our panel today is Wout Van Damme, from the CEO of Funbox, Marc Barnett, General Manager, Microsoft Media Network and Advertising Exchange, ninemsn, Danny Bass, Chief Digital Officer, GroupM, and Roy Souza, CEO, ZEDO Ad Solutions. ZEDO Ad Solutions, right? Sorry. So maybe if we could just go across the panel, you guys just explain a little bit about your business very quickly, and then we'll open it up for questions.
My name is Roy Souza. As Katie said, I'm the CEO of ZEDO. ZEDO is an advertising technology partner for publishers. We stand with the publishers and help them generate more revenue, especially focused on improving online advertising and technology and formats that begin to make online advertising as good as TV.
And I'm Marc Barnett, so I'm the General Manager for the Microsoft Media Network and Ad Exchange. Recently we have brought the Microsoft Media Network into the ninemsn joint venture, and my role is to effectively run that media network, which monetizes all of the unsold inventory on ninemsn, plus sells inventory across a bunch of third-party websites that we deal with.
Afternoon everyone, I'm Danny Bass, the Chief Digital Officer for GroupM. My role encompasses a few things across the group. We have 4 fantastic media agencies: Mediacom, Mindshare, Maxis and MEC. I look after trading and investment, digital trading and investment for the group. Xaxis, our agency exchange, DSP. Outrider, which is our research agency, and something loosely titled Digital Innovation.
Good afternoon, my name is Wout Van Damme. I'm the CEO of Funbox, and we're a performance trading desk. We buy media through ad exchanges and DSP platforms on CPM, and we sell it to advertisers and agencies on a performance metric, which could be a click, a conversion, a lead, and that's it.
Okay, so we've got 5 questions here that we're going to kick off with, but we want to make this interactive as well, so if there's any questions as we're going along, feel free to just put your hand up or yell so I can hear you. So the first question here is display advertising still effective? Who wants to start? Danny?
I hope so, I was going to do a job. I think absolutely it's still effective. It's the measurement or the metric of success which defines if it's effective or not. So I think if you speak to most marketers from a CPA, CPC, CPL, or we call it CPW, cost per whatever, perspective, it is absolutely effective. I think the challenge for us as an industry, whether you be on the agency side, client side, or publisher side, is the brand side of things, and do enough senior marketers see digital as an environment to build a brand, and unfortunately I don't think they do at the moment.
I mean, my opinion on this is that digital advertising is not as effective as it should be. Today, 10, 15 years after the start of the internet, television advertising is still far more effective. People can build brands and sell products better on television advertising. And online has a lot of advantages, and I think we can make it better, and it needs continual innovation. And in 5, 10 years, I think it'll be much more effective than it is today.
Tell us how, right?
I think we focus too much on small ad units, which have very little impact. There's a big debate in the US at the moment about viewable impressions. Comscore says that 38% of the ads served on the web are never seen by users, cannot possibly be seen by a user. So that money is effectively wasted.
Is that because they're below the fold?
Below the fold, or the user scrolls down very quickly, or they're auto-refreshing a page and they're reading a different page. And by serving ads like that, although it looks in the short term like we can get the advertisers to pay for it, it damages the whole ecosystem in the long term, because ads that are not seen are not effective. So we need to innovate, and one thing we're strong believers in is formats that are 100% viewable. They're very popular today, but brand advertisers can be sure that everyone's seen them. And if everyone sees them, then you notice click-through rates are better too.
I think the interesting part of that is, for most marketers, when they're thinking of launching a product, they think of TV immediately. And there's somewhat of a vanity buy associated with that. People like to sit on their couch on Friday night watching the footy and their other peers or whatever the latest show is, because they know their colleagues, their board, their boss is seeing it as well. The digital equivalent of that, I'm not quite sure. An OTP, something which can be quite intrusive. Until we can nail the equivalent of the ad at halftime in the Super Bowl, or first acquisition break for the latest show on Channel 7, I think that's the key. That's the thing that we've got to get across. Because if you look at most news sites in Australia, they still look the same as they did 15 years ago. They were built with a newspaper template. So there's a leaderboard at the top, there's an MREC at the top, there's a couple of ads down the bottom. They look better, they're prettier, they're more intuitive, but it's still effectively the same look and feel of a site that it was 10 or 15 years ago. So I think that's our challenge, to make display ads more attractive to the consumer as much as it is to the CMO. And I think things like tablets will allow us to do that.
I think we also have to look at how far we've come. The display landscape has considerably changed over the last 3 to 4 years, where 4 years ago we had publishers, we had ad networks, and they were pretty much running the show, and not always with a lot of visibility and a lot of effectiveness. And we've seen a lot of developments in this market in terms of technology, in terms of players and technology players that didn't exist, or even technology that didn't exist 2-3 years ago, and it's now playing a crucial role in making this industry more effective. And we're not there yet, but I do think that we have already made a lot of progress in display advertising, and we're definitely on our way to make sure that we ultimately want to serve the right ad to the right user at the right time.
Also think about the question of, is it still effective? I think the answer is a resounding yes, but like with most things, I think it's only as effective as you make it, and you only get out what you put in. And I think with all the different technology that's available today, as Danny mentioned, with things like Access and other DSPs and ad exchanges and all the different forms of measurement that we have, the more data that's collected, the more data that's used back in the campaign cycle, the more effective the results will be. So I think there's a hell of a lot of technology available that can make that happen. It's now down to advertisers, agencies, publishers using that data and that technology to make things more effective.
Okay, so I guess that brings us into the next question then, and that is what are the newest technologies in display advertising, and how can your organisation utilise them?
Unilever, through the Cornetto brand, did something quite cool, I think, a couple of weeks ago using Shazam. I think if you look at this year's Super Bowl, over 2/3 of everyone who advertised at the Super Bowl had a Shazam button or logo during the ad for different purposes. So I think the emergence of products like Shazam, Pinterest is the thing that everyone's talking about at the moment, Instagram, so Tiffany's and Levi's involved in some amazing ideas with Instagram. I think that's an exciting space to play in now. Spotify as well,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's definitely lots of new technologies around. As I mentioned earlier, one of them is that Comscore is tracking and showing, I think Double Verify too, is showing the percentage of viewable impressions, and that creates innovation. We have products now that can guarantee that 100% of impressions are viewable. It's a small innovation, but it's a step in the right direction. I think something Danny said is another innovation that'll soon appear is tablets. We see very heavy usage of tablet browsers. On a typical news site, we see about 25% from mobile, and 20 percentage points of that coming from tablet browsers, not the applications and not the smartphones, but the tablet browsers. So that allows whole new ad formats and ad types, which will be able to really build brands and sell products. And I think another space is video. We know that TV ads work. I'm a strong believer in running those very same TV ads in an easy way on the web. The advertisers like the TV ads. They spend a lot of money building them. They hire actors and choreograph them well. we can run that same ad format, the same video ad directly on the web, that I think is an innovation that will really help.
Do you really think that running a TV ad online works? Do you not think that it needs to be different, messaging needs to be different in an online environment?
We see it from the publisher side. So from the publisher side, if advertisers are buying it, then it works. And we have some customers selling, to TV advertisers, and the ads click through to a full screen video, not to a landing page. And advertisers buy it, and that site makes a lot of money. So from the publisher point of view, they work. I presume and I hope that the advertiser is also checking whether it works on their metrics. And generally speaking, if they're spending a lot of money, the advertiser knows it works.
I work on the media agency, not the creative agency. I don't know if anyone here is from the creative agency, but I wonder when the brief comes through, whether or not we need to build a TVC for the web, or we need to build a TVC for TV, and then we'll chop it down to 15 seconds to use online. And I think unfortunately it's the latter.
I think also in terms of new technology, I think the ad exchanges and the DSP platforms are really a key driver for change in the display area. We've seen that it's really changing the whole landscape where they're now more focused companies working with advertisers on DSP platforms. The companies now working with publishers on the supply side to make that more efficiently. I think that's created a whole new platform for innovation that is really driving this whole automated media buying that we're now starting to hear more and more of. And it creates a lot of more efficiencies in the market, and it does make the advertising much more effective. We've seen some really innovative new DSP platforms come out with ads there that we couldn't really run before. We have platforms that we've seen run banners, where there's one ad placement with 3 different creatives in there that really drives higher CTRs and higher conversion rates, which is an innovation that we really are happy to see. I think in terms of remarketing, that's a big thing. It's maybe not the newest thing out there, but it's definitely a very effective way of working in display advertising, and it's so easy accessible now. I think every advertiser out there should definitely run remarketing campaigns through ad exchanges. There's a lot of new technology around dynamic creative optimization, where you can basically optimize a creative on site level, which helps the performance of campaigns. We see a lot of new developments around cross-channel attribution, where advertisers would get more insights in terms of how different channels operate independently or in conjunction with other channels, and that will result in more effectiveness of budgets and more budgets assigned to the areas that really work. So there's pretty much every time there's a new technology out there that will help drive the effectiveness of this whole channel.
I think the big thing though as well is, if we talk about new technologies, not just new, is mobile for this year. I know every year for the last 10 years has been the year of mobile, but I think we can't deny the figures anymore. And certainly if you look at the number one topic in most boardrooms at the moment that we are fortunate enough to go into, mobile is the one thing that everyone's trying to get their head around. Whatever Facebook and Google do in that space over the next 12 months will really drive the new way of media buying, and will really drive a new era of really targeted technology for ads.
Yeah, that's right. I think we've landed 100% on the money there around the fact that it's been a year of mobile for a long time, but we've finally got to the point where we're not just talking about mobile, we're actually getting a lot of multi-screen campaigns being booked with us. So we're getting a lot of campaigns that run across both the web, mobile and Xbox. And I think the change that we've seen is the willingness to act as opposed to talk, and we're getting briefed in by a lot of our clients on being able to deliver an execution across those multiple screens at the same time. And I think that's been a big shift for us. On top of that, to touch on the ad exchange point, so we launched our exchange in November of last year, and I think the premise that our business is being built around now is about putting the marketer back in control. So our view is that our audience carries a certain value, our inventory carries a certain value, and we will allow marketers to buy their inventory from us in whatever way they see fit, whether it's on a premium basis, on a network basis with our data, or putting all of our inventory into an ad exchange and letting advertisers and agencies purchase that using their own data and their own technology.
So something Danny mentioned before you guys got up on stage, is that in the US, 80% of all online media is booked through an exchange in terms of volume for display, not money. Maybe just going back a step, I don't know who the audience is here, but maybe you guys could talk to us about what an exchange is, what a DSP is, because everybody keeps talking about this.
All right, so an ad exchange is it's sort of like a stock exchange. That's probably the best way to compare it, where supply and demand of display and inventory come together. We're talking about display here, but there's also ad exchanges for video and mobile. But display is definitely the one that sees the most volume at the moment. So in these ad exchange, supply and demand are grouped together, and trading desks can make bids for traffic. So we might set up a bid with around a certain pricing, certain geo, certain demographic elements, and that bid would go off to the exchange, where supply and demand would effectively determine how much volume you will be getting. This is a reference to automated media buying, where in the old days, ad agencies would have, well, it still happens, but it's sort of getting less, where all the media plans are Excel sheets sent off to certain publishers who are then trafficking it in. That's where through ad exchanges it becomes much more automated and much more efficient. A DSP platform sort of sits on top of various ad exchanges and allows a trading desk to trade across various ad exchanges simultaneously through one interface. On the other side of an ad exchange, you would find a supply side platform, which is essentially a publisher yield platform. And that's a big split that we've seen in the market, and we'll see more and more, where an ad network traditionally would sit in the middle and try to optimize for yield for publishers and for advertisers. We see that the market is sort of splitting, where there be dedicated companies towards advertiser ROI, and there be dedicated companies who optimize for yield for publishers.
Yeah, look, I think, again, it depends on the audience, and I'm hoping this resonates and is the right message. But look, the easiest way that we've tried to explain what an ad exchange is it benefits both the publisher and the advertiser. So from an advertiser's point of view, in real time, your technology views every impression and makes a decision on what that impression's worth to you. So you overlay all your own data, you know that person has been to your site in the last 7 days, had something in their shopping basket, didn't go ahead and purchase. That impression becomes available, and you make that purchase based on the fact that you know what that customer's worth to you. You apply certain value to that, and then you can also serve whatever creative you want to serve based on what you know about that customer. From the publisher's point of view, if I use an example from us internally, we might sell a piece of inventory in Hong Kong for $1, to use a round figure, and our sales team would need to go to market and try and sell it to Danny or one of the other agencies, and there would be a value attached to that. You wouldn't pay $1, I know that for a fact. And when we put that piece of inventory in the exchange, it doesn't matter that that inventory is in Hotmail or in Messenger or on White Water Sports. What matters is that the impression is coming from a particular segment of audience that is valuable to the advertiser, and therefore in a certain instance they may pay $2, they may pay $3, they may pay $4, they may pay $20 if that customer is extremely valuable to them. And you start to put that forward and think, if you're a bank and you're trying to get home loan customers, what's the lifetime value of that customer? If you're trying to sell cars, and all the way down. So I think for us anyway, we're staking a big part of the future of our business around the exchange and around automated trading, under the premise that if the advertiser can purchase in whatever way they choose and can value that impression based on their own data, that the publisher ultimately will win in the long run.
Can I ask, just to get some feedback from the audience, how many people here have bought any advertising from an exchange? Just a couple, I think.
That
it's a bit dark. And how many have sold inventory on an exchange? Very few, okay. Yeah, I think the way I see an exchange is that it is an intermediary, very much like an ad network. Publishers put inventory on it, and advertisers can buy from it. The difference between an ad network is an exchange is much less people-based. It's using more technology. So publishers like ninemsn put it on automatically. They do some integration, and all the inventory goes on the exchange. And advertisers, again, don't have a sales rep coming to their office with a PowerPoint. You know, there's no one coming to the agency with a PowerPoint. Instead, they can go online and buy from this platform directly.
Not that there's anything wrong with a salesperson going into an agency with a PowerPoint.
Well, for a keynote, from an agency's perspective, so we launched our DSP in June of last year. We are very, very fortunate that GroupM globally has been doing this for about 4 or 5 years now. Started off in Germany, and GroupM Germany, with typical German ruthlessness and efficiency, developed a preferred partner program, and then launched what was an ad network 4 or 5 years ago, which became our trading desk. The one thing I would say in terms of trends that we're now seeing around the world, Australia was first in the GroupM world to go live in Asia Pac. It's not just about digital media anymore, or it's not just about web inventory anymore. David Gingell was at a conference last year, and I can't speak for that because I've never met him once, but he was asked the question, what keeps you awake at night? And he spoke about DSPs, and I just wonder whether what he means by that is the impact it's going to have on his TV business in a few years. Because what we're seeing now around the world is absolutely that the DSP, the exchange, is no longer the domain of TV. It's any media that can be transacted digitally, whether that be outdoor, or TV, or radio, or anything else. So I think what we're seeing now in our world, in the digital world, will absolutely come to the forefront in the next 2 or 3 years for pretty much all media.
So you said that 80% of all online media goes through an exchange in the US, and you say it's about 20 to 25% in Australia. Is that right?
That's best guess.
Best guess.
Yeah.
So why the difference?
I think Australia's quite a unique market, particularly in terms of the dominance of 4 or 5 big publishers. Speaking to colleagues in Europe and North America, they can't believe the CPMs that 5 or 6 big publishers still get. They're extremely surprised, even though the percentage of share of spend is going down. I think it's still around 60 to 65%, which goes to 5 publishers. There's very few places in the world where that happens. So I think we are quite unique in our marketplace. Whereas within the US, where exchange has been prevalent for a long time, it's almost the complete opposite.
Question for you, Danny, on that. You've gone in many ways beyond an exchange by building Zaxis. You've built a platform which you buy directly from the publishers in an automated fashion. Do you see that as going beyond an exchange and cutting out the exchange, or do you see that as a different type of exchange?
Well, there's 2 parts to it. One is, as a media agency, we are the brand guardians of our clients, and we've all seen the ads, stories and ad news and other trade publications of ads appearing on sites that they shouldn't appear on, and that's not a nice call to have from your client when they're appearing on a porn site or something similar. So our approach to media buying for Zaxis display is that we don't buy in the exchange, because whatever an exchange tell you, they can't 100% guarantee that your ad is not going to appear somewhere else. If Google can't protect it, then in our view, no one can. So that's not to say we won't buy from exchanges, but in terms of how we source our inventory into Zaxis, it's done direct with local publishers at a fixed price, and we sell at a fixed price. The second part to that, and coming from the sales side, I was sales side for 20 years, and every time I say this, the remainder of the sales director dies inside. But every month or every quarter, the agencies are inundated with phone calls or people coming through the door because they've got a gap in their revenue target. So they're looking for 50 grand or 100 grand or 150 grand or 200 grand or whatever it may be, because they've been pressured by their sales director or commercial director to fill that gap. Now, 90% of the time, the money's not there anyway, and the money that is there usually is being earmarked for the next quarter, so the salesperson's already at a disadvantage. We did some analysis last year to look at the offers that were coming in around that end of the month, end of the quarter period, and as an average ECPM, we could buy at about 35, 40 cents. So on one hand, we get criticised for driving prices down, but in a lot of ways, the media owners are doing it to themselves, because smart media buyer will hold on. So our view is, we'll help you in the other end of the spectrum, which is the brand building, content creation, premium content, and video, but you're always going to have a large amount of inventory that you're either selling yourself through your own exchange, or you're selling through a third party. So if we can work with people who we can have relationships that cover both ends of the spectrum, that works very well.
So what you're saying in summary is that you'll buy the bulk inventory from exchanges or automated platforms, and you know the prices won't be high, but publishers do have a chance to earn more by doing the higher quality formats and the videos and brand building type units.
Well, obviously I'm self-interested in this, but I wouldn't see why a publisher would sell to Google when they could sell to an agency buying group, because I think it's actually putting a lot of power on the side of the publisher when negotiating with an agency group. You're never going to get anything back from Google other than a fixed price CPM or even an exchange price CPM. Whereas we can use that inventory and it brings something new to the table if you're a media owner. It just depends on what price someone's happy to sell that media and what they negotiate on the back of that.
I think that's a very healthy development. If the agencies have the technology to buy direct from publishers and, cut out people like Google, I think the whole industry will do better, except Google.
I don't think it's about cutting out Google, and they're a very strong partner of ours.
Sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah. But video is probably the one. That's the hot topic at the moment. And last year there was an explosion of video networks arriving in Australia. Most of the major video exchanges from the States have now got local representation. There isn't enough local video to cope with demand. So whether an agency group likes it or not, they have to go into the exchanges to get that inventory. So there's a lot of caution around that. As a buying group, we invest over $1 billion in TV spend every year. You only need to shift that needle a slight amount, and that's a considerable amount of money going into digital. But we need to give clients the comfort and assurance that their ads aren't going to appear on sites where they should.
That's probably a good time now to move into the next point about brand safety. I think there has been a lot of text written in magazines about brand safety on ad exchanges recently, and there are definitely challenges there, but there's also a lot of technology available to make sure that ads are appearing on brand safe sites in ad exchanges. There's obviously technology around site verification, where the ads won't be served until the site's been checked through a machine learning process to see whether it's brand safe or not, which can be done on page level. That brings a certain level of brand safety on ad exchanges. There's also still a lot of manual work that needs to be done, because unfortunately there's not really one out-of-the-box solution that would guarantee brand safety on ad exchanges. So it's a combination of using the right technology and having the right internal procedures to ensure that brand safety is there. So we still do a lot of manual site listing. So we would check sites and see whether they would pose any potential threats. That does guarantee a certain level of brand safety, but it's also a very cumbersome process, and it does limit the reach you can create through ad exchanges. But it also depends on what client requirements are, and For some clients, it needs to be absolutely sure, so we do manual checking. We use site verification solutions, and we also use some proprietary software that gives us additional visibility to see where the tags are actually serving. It's definitely an area where I feel that brands can place their ads. I guess the question is whether the 100% guarantee can be delivered, but we do feel that it is safe enough to operate in.
Before you guys got up on stage, we were talking about display advertising and breaking it down into two different areas. One was direct response, one was brand and premium content. Where do you guys see brands investing more money now? Is it across both? Do you see it more on one side?
I think from our perspective, we look at where the money is being spent. We try to make best guesses in terms of where we think it's going to go for the year. We look at the next 12 months, and if it goes as we think it's going to go, 20% of client spend is going to go to people who 3 years ago either didn't exist or didn't receive any client money from GroupM. So that's a big shift, 20%. I think, I don't know if anyone out there has seen the Doppelganger campaign for Pedigree in New Zealand. If you haven't, I'd really recommend that you do it, because I think for me that's where all the best attributes of digital come together. The agency in New Zealand, I think the guys saw these shelves border security where they have the facial recognition and got hold of that technology. And Pedigree have, I suppose you call it a high-class problem, as much as their market penetration is so high. The only way they can grow market share is by getting more people to own a dog. So they did the face recognition for every single dog in New Zealand that's currently up for adoption. And if you go to the website via a webcam, it scans your face and matches you with the dog, because the insight is, dogs look like their owners, and you need that connection. And for me, it's everything that digital can do above any other medium. It's got technology, it's got that instant reaction, it's got the shareability, it has that connection, it uses data. It's going to win a bucket load of awards in Cannes this year, of that I've got no doubt, but there's just not enough of that going on. And it takes a really brave, first of all a brave agency, and then an even braver marketer to say, you know what, I'm going to put $1 million in this idea, I'm going to take that $1 million out of an exchange or DSP that I know is generating a cost per click or a cost per acquisition of so much, because I believe in this brand. So for me, it's about bravery. And there are examples of it. Another of our clients, P&G, they have a 70-20-10 rule, whereby 70% of their media goes in tried and tested, 20% goes in sort of newish media, and 10% is just try it and see what happens, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. And I think that's a really, really smart approach to dividing your marketing budget.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of marketers talking over the last few months while I've been out there about test and learn budgets. They're opening up more budget to it now to test new opportunities. Any other comments?
Yeah, I think it's a question that's asked a lot. Are the brand advertisers going to advertise heavily on the web or not? And being on the publisher side, I very much hope they are, but I also think that they will. And they take a bit more time, and we need to come up with better formats which really get their products out there. But the reasons performance advertisers are fast is that they can buy a campaign, they can check the clicks, they can check the leads, they can look at the cost per lead, and decide whether to buy more or cancel, pretty much instantly, in a matter of days. So they're very fast moving. They can try anything and everything, and they don't take much risk. They know immediately if they're hitting their metrics. While brand advertisers, as I understand them, are trying to build awareness and trying to, much longer term objectives, which are more difficult to measure instantly. So they can't just take budgets and test them instantly. So they'll take a while to get comfortable, and I think when we see Procter & Gamble launching, you know, a new version of Tide or a new, you know, one of their mainstream products, and they launch it on the web, we'll know that the brand advertisers have really found a way to make online work.
I think it's hard when a lot of the hype and a lot of the talk is around the networks and the exchanges. And when we look at our business, at any presentation we do, even internal company meetings, we talk a lot about the growth of the media network, the launch of the ad exchange, the future of programmatic trading. But when we sit back in our weekly revenue meetings, the vast majority of our revenue still comes from our premium display business. And I think Danny touched on it earlier around the fact that there's 5 premium publishers in Australia who control a large portion of the inventory. And I think one of the reasons that the other publishers are still very hesitant to put their inventory into an exchange is because the vast majority of their money is still coming through their premium business. So I definitely think that there is a place for premium publishing to continue, and I think that will continue to be a fairly strong business. But we definitely believe that there's a place for all 3 of those streams, from premium through the network through the exchange, and it's just about making sure that you're servicing each of those different markets and supplying what each of those markets need.
The challenge that a lot of the publishers will face over the coming years, particularly around that brand content creation space, is justifying the cost. And you know, the days of paying $40, $50, $60 CPMs for when you can compare it to an ad exchange or a DSP for $5 or $10, and you can prove it's the same person, makes it very difficult to keep that on the plan. So the next challenge for the media owners is to change the metrics of success. So if a media owner comes to a bank or whatever client and say, look, we're going to build this section. Traditionally it was, you'll have a brought to you by logo, and you can own every ad on that page. And a media owner knows that, you know, a well-placed article on a homepage, whether that be news or SMH or 9, can drive 100,000 UVs a day quite easily. But it's qualifying who those UVs are. And there's an article today in Australia have announced that their paywall now has 30,000 subscribers, which is a good number. The next challenge for them is explaining who they are and why they can sustain a $40, $50, $60 CPM. But the other thing as well with the exchange is, yes, you might be targeting the right person and at a really nice cost, but is the environment right? I think that's the bit where the publishers, whether they be a ninemsn or an In The Mix or Taste.com or Essential Baby, it's about that environment sale, and what does it mean for that brand not only to be seen by the right person, but also to be in the right environment.
What we've seen about that is that if we compare our exchange traffic or the feedback that we're getting from our clients is that when they run across premium inventory and compare it with ad exchange traffic, there's no lot of difference in terms of performance of that traffic. If you look at it from bounce rates, time on site, page views, it's not really that much different compared to ad exchange to premium inventory. But if you then bring in price in the mix, it really shifts the whole game.
To touch on what Danny said though, if you look at our audience team internally at ninemsn, the shift in their KPIs from a year ago to now is extreme. A year ago, it was all about time spent on a page, number of impressions, number of UVs, all these volume metrics where if you were looking after one of our sites, all you wanted to do was get as many people to that site as possible to consume as many impressions as possible, because every impression was worth a certain amount, and that was how we ran our business. And that whole idea has now shifted to the point where if you're running one of those sites and you're responsible for the content on that site, the data that's flowing through our exchange is flowing back to the content owners who are starting to understand, is the audience that I have on this site actually valuable or not, and trying to work out how to bring a more valuable audience based on what the different DSPs are buying. That data is feeding all the way back around as to how we create our content and what type of impressions and what type of audience we're trying to generate on our site.
Guys, we've run out of time, and I want to make sure we get a couple of questions from the audience. Has anyone got a